any circuit when you're building your full throttle and the power is dropping away and the guy ahead's pulling away. That's of course that's frustrating, but we understand that's where we are.
Those were the words of Lewis Hamilton immediately after qualifying at Silverstone, and while the interview lasted barely a minute, those few seconds may have revealed more about Ferrari's current situation than any technical briefing ever could. Hamilton wasn't shouting, he wasn't making excuses, he wasn't blaming his engineers. Instead, he calmly described something every Formula One fan instantly understood. You're pushing the car as hard as possible, your foot is completely planted, you're expecting maximum acceleration, and suddenly the power disappears while the car ahead simply drives away. For a driver who has spent his entire career demanding perfection, that's one of the most frustrating feelings imaginable. What's interesting is that this interview came after a day that wasn't actually bad for Hamilton. In fact, if you only looked at the results, most people would say Ferrari had a strong performance. Hamilton took sprint pole, finished second in the sprint race, and then qualified third for Sunday's Grand Prix. Most teams would happily accept those results. But listening to Hamilton's voice, you could tell he believed there was even more pace hidden inside that Ferrari. The numbers looked good, yet something still wasn't right. Hamilton even admitted that Ferrari had made only tiny changes to the car compared to Friday. Nothing major, just small adjustments. Yet those tiny changes were enough to make the car feel different. That's something many casual fans don't always realize about Formula One. Sometimes a setup change that looks insignificant on paper can completely change how a driver feels behind the wheel. Confidence is everything in qualifying. If a driver loses just a little trust in the car through high-speed corners, that can easily cost a few tenths of a second. And at Silverstone, a few tenths can mean the difference between pole position and starting from the second row. But it wasn't the setup that caught everyone's attention. It was the battery deployment issue. Hamilton openly admitted that the problem had already been affecting Ferrari during the sprint. That means it wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't bad luck. It was a weakness the team already knew existed. And when the interviewer asked whether that issue was frustrating, Hamilton gave one of the most honest answers we've heard all weekend. He explained that whenever he reached full throttle, the power would begin dropping away, allowing the driver ahead to pull further into the distance. That single sentence immediately exploded across social media because it confirmed what many Ferrari fans had already suspected. The car isn't lacking speed everywhere. It's losing performance exactly when Hamilton needs it most. And that's where the fan reaction became incredibly interesting. Scrolling through thousands of comments, one thing becomes very clear. The Formula One community isn't blaming Hamilton. Far from it. Most fans actually believe he's extracting almost everything possible from this Ferrari. One of the most liked comments said that you could put the fastest driver in the world inside the car, but if the battery refuses to deploy properly, there's simply nothing the driver can do. Another fan described modern Formula One as becoming more of a deployment battle than a battle between drivers. Whether you agree with that opinion or not, it's obvious that many viewers are becoming increasingly frustrated with how much modern hybrid systems influence racing. Several comments even argued that Formula One should be about drivers racing flat out instead of constantly managing batteries and energy deployment. Others went even further, saying the sport has become too dependent on technology instead of pure racing. Of course, not everyone agreed. Some fans defended Ferrari, pointing out that every team has strengths and weaknesses under the current regulations. Others reminded everyone that Hamilton still finished near the front despite these issues, proving that Ferrari has taken significant steps forward compared to earlier in the season. And honestly, that may be the biggest story here: progress. Because if we rewind just a few months, Ferrari wasn't consistently fighting near the front every weekend. Now they are. They're putting both cars inside the top positions. They're collecting valuable championship points. And perhaps most importantly, Lewis Hamilton actually sounds like a driver who believes his team can improve. Think about his wording carefully. He didn't say the situation was hopeless. He didn't criticize Ferrari. Instead, he simply said, "We understand that's where we are, and we just keep continuing to work." That sentence tells you everything. The team knows the problem. Now the challenge is fixing it. Another huge debate among fans centers around Ferrari's setup decisions. Hamilton admitted they made small changes after Friday. Many viewers now believe Ferrari deliberately sacrificed qualifying pace to build a stronger race car. It's only a theory, Ferrari hasn't officially confirmed it, but it would explain why Hamilton looked so competitive during sprint qualifying before losing a little performance later. One fan wrote that race pace matters far more than qualifying pace. Another said Ferrari should immediately return to Friday's setup because that's when Hamilton looked the fastest all weekend. Who's right? We won't know until the race. But that's exactly why Sunday's Grand Prix suddenly became far more exciting. Hamilton isn't starting from pole, he's starting as the hunter. And history has shown that Lewis Hamilton is often at his most dangerous when he's chasing rather than defending. Silverstone is also a circuit where strategy, tire management, confidence, and experience matter enormously. Few drivers understand this track better than Hamilton. Every corner carries memories, every lap carries pressure, and every British fan in the grandstands wants to see something special. That's why one particular comment stood out. A fan wrote that a 10th Silverstone victory with Ferrari would be unforgettable. Just imagine that for a moment. After everything Hamilton achieved with Mercedes, after one of the biggest driver transfers in Formula One history, winning his home race wearing Ferrari red would instantly become one of the defining moments of his career. But before any of that can happen, Ferrari must solve the issue Hamilton described. Because if the power continues disappearing on the straights, overtaking becomes dramatically more difficult. Instead of attacking rivals, Hamilton could spend the entire afternoon defending from cars with stronger deployment. That's the reality Ferrari faces. And that's why this interview matters so much. It wasn't emotional because Hamilton was angry, it was emotional because of how calm he remained. You could hear disappointment, but you could also hear determination. Even after describing the deployment problem, Hamilton immediately praised Ferrari for locking out second and third on the grid and spoke about putting pressure on the leaders during the race. That's leadership. Instead of creating headlines by blaming the team, he reminded everyone that Ferrari is moving forward. Not fast enough yet, but forward. The comments reflected exactly that balance. Some fans are frustrated with Formula One's hybrid systems. Some believe Ferrari has finally become a genuine contender again. Some think Mercedes still holds the advantage. Others believe Ferrari simply needs one more upgrade before it can consistently fight for victories. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. This Ferrari looks more competitive than it has in a long time. Now the question is whether competitive is enough. Can Hamilton overcome the deployment issue? Can Ferrari's race setup deliver better pace than qualifying suggested? Can strategy make the difference? Or will the same problem Hamilton described after qualifying return when it matters most? Those questions are exactly why millions of fans will be watching when the lights go out. Because sometimes a 1-minute interview tells a much bigger story than an entire qualifying session. And Lewis Hamilton's words may have revealed the biggest challenge Ferrari must overcome before they can truly fight for victory.